UAlbany head coach Will Brown joins us here on this Monday morning show as we look forward to the Final Four weekend on the men's side in college basketball. Loyola Chicago against Michigan, followed by Villanova and Kansas. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
How are we doing today, right?
I'm doing all right. It's
That's
Monday.
Good.
Ask me on Friday.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. These weeks zip right by. Dropped my kids off school. I said, you know what? Short week, guys. Monday through Thursday, you're done. So these weeks fly by.
When do spring workouts start?
Soon, right?
Well, yeah, our guys started lifting today, and then we'll start working out, on the court midweek next week.
Wow.
You want to make sure you give them plenty of time to kind of decompress a little bit, be a regular student, and, get re-energized as we move forward.
All right, let's move forward with Loyola Chicago, Coach. I mean, to me, they're legit, and what I like about them is the way they play defense, which I know is a big thing on your list with your teams. But I like them in all areas. I think they're a legit team and certainly can beat Michigan. What's your thoughts on this? The team that has captured everyone around the country, probably more so because of Sister Jean than anybody else. But how about Loyola Chicago?
Well, they're actually, a team of destiny. I mean, if you look how they won their first three games, basically every game was a final shot with the clock winding down. They have Sister Jean. Their first comfortable win was against Kansas State in the Elite Eight, but they're really good. I think nowadays in our game, there's so many ball screens being set on the court. And the one thing that they do, they switch everything 1 through 4. So when the other team's four-man sets a ball screen, they just switch it. So they really take the ball screen out of the equation. They dare you to try to take advantage of maybe them having a guard on one of your big men. They dare you to try to take advantage of that because on the other end of the floor, when they're on offense, they do a great job of spacing you out. Now your big man has to guard their perimeter player. They do a great job offensively of taking advantage of mismatches, and then defensively they're taking the ball screen out of the equation, switching everything, and not allowing you to get in any type of rhythm offensively. And a lot of teams are standing against them. They're just really good on both ends, and they're on a roll right now, playing really well, really confident. So you have two number one seeds on one side in the Final Four, and then you have the hottest team in the country, probably in Michigan, and then the team of destiny in Loyola. It should really be an interesting matchup on both sides of the bracket to get to the Final Four.
Well, and Michigan's playing well too. I mean, this is. But I don't think this would be. Would this be a huge upset in your mind if Loyola Chicago beat Michigan?
Based on what they've done so far and getting to the Final Four, no. At some point it's got to catch up to Loyola of Chicago. I mean, they're playing another big boy here in Michigan. I think Michigan's won 12 or 13 in a row. The biggest difference between this year's Michigan team and teams of the past is they can beat you defensively. They've always relied on their offense, and then they'd sprinkle in that 1-3-1 zone to cause confusion in the past. Now they're really guarding teams in the half court. They're more athletic than they've been. But again, they're a team that can create some matchup problems too, the way they play offense. So this will be an interesting matchup. I think Michigan will win this game, but nothing would surprise me with the way Loyola's been playing. But people forget Michigan hasn't lost in a long time.
UAlbany head coach Will Brown with us here, extending beyond the UAlbany season to help us break down the brackets and look ahead to the Final Four here. Will, how about the other side? Kansas and Villanova, and Kansas wins maybe what was the best game of the tournament to this point, overtime win against Duke. I'm going to ask a question that I know our producer Brian Mariano wants you to answer. Should Coach K have used a timeout there late, knowing they could take the final shot instead of just letting his senior go have at it?
Well, I know a lot of coaches, in that situation think differently. If he calls a timeout, now you have to inbound the ball, then you're allowing, Kansas coming out of a timeout, to set their defense. The only thing with Kansas is Kansas only plays man-to-man. So they're going to come out of a timeout, and they're going to guard you man-to-man. if Grayson Allen makes that shot, nobody's talking about that. I think, he put the ball in his senior's hands and said, Grayson Allen, make a play. So there's a lot of coaches that believe in a timeout. There's a lot of coaches that don't. I do agree that was an unbelievable game. I was surprised that Kansas won the game for the mere fact that the majority of the game they had McCulloch, however you pronounce his last name, guarding Marvin Bagley. I thought Duke would dominate the glass, and I'm shocked that Duke only got Bagley 9 shot attempts the entire game, because even if they double Bagley, he's going to be able to look over the defense and find open shooters. Even though Duval had a great game for Duke, I think having him take that many shots and dominate the ball like that, I think it helped Kansas. And Kansas did an unbelievable job dissecting that 2-3 zone. Every time they came out of a timeout, Bill Self pulled something out of his back pocket to get a layup or a dunk against the 2-3 zone. So not surprised Kay didn't call a timeout, just surprised that Kansas out-rebounded Duke and how few shots that Bagley got for Duke.
Well, it's going to be an interesting weekend, no doubt. Would you say it's going to be who against who in the finals on Monday?
In my opinion, and I could be wrong on this, I just think Villanova is playing at such a high level, and they've got 6 guys averaging double figures offensively, and they have a point guard. This is going to be a great point guard matchup. I think Devontae Graham for Kansas doesn't get enough credit. I think Brunson for Villanova is a 10-year pro, never gets rattled, plays at his own pace. And if you see him doing his Magic Johnson, backing the other point guards down to the block, I think it's going to be an awesome game, and I just think Villanova is going to find a way to win the game. And I think Michigan's going to win, and I think Villanova will beat Michigan in the national title. I would be surprised if Loyola does beat Michigan, would not be surprised if Kansas finds a way to beat Villanova. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in the Villanova Kansas game, a lot of drive and kick, high scoring. It'll be interesting. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guards on the floor for both teams. I think that's going to be another great game, and whoever can survive. But I'm going to go with Nova, and then Nova to beat Michigan in the final. More importantly, who do you guys have?
I honestly, I'll be rooting like crazy for Loyola Chicago. I want them to
beating
win.
North Carolina. Can that still happen?
Coach, I have Virginia winning the national championship.
Well, I do know that I did have a very happy household yesterday that Kansas found a way, to beat Duke. My 7-year-old was yelling at the TV the whole game. Every time a foul went against Kansas, he was yelling at the referees. Matter of fact, my older son came up from the basement, and my 7-year-old goes, Jackson, every time the ball goes out of bounds, the referees are giving it to Duke. That's not right. And I'm just sitting there laughing, talking about a bunch of UNC homers here. So,
oh, man.
But, no, you know what? This is the best time of year, and it started off with UMBC, and now that's kind of an afterthought because of what Loyola's doing and Sister Jean. But it's been a fun tournament. It's almost like Villanova and Kansas are afterthoughts as number 1 seeds.
Hey, one more for me, and I want to put you in a spot because I don't know if you saw the game, but the end of the Florida State-Michigan game where the Florida State coach, Leonard Hamilton, with his team down by 4, not calling a timeout with like 11 seconds or not fouling, and it looked like his team just absolutely, all right, we're going to lose this game, and you don't foul. And after the game, Dana Jacobson, I thought, was fair in her questioning to the coach, Leonard Hamilton. He didn't like it. It was kind of an awkward moment. But what did you see the end of Florida State-Michigan?
Yeah, I did. I mean, Dana Jacobson has to answer that question because I think a lot of people were thinking the same thing.
Right.
And you know what happened, and this is what I think happened. I think Florida State froze because the possession before, Michigan's not a good free throw shooting team, and the possession before that they fouled Duncan Robinson, who's the best free throw shooter, I think like 88% for Michigan, and the coaches for Florida State went bonkers on the sideline. They were so upset that they fouled Duncan Robinson. The next possession that we're talking about right now, the ball was inbounded, and it ended up in Robinson's hands, and the kid went to foul and then pulled his hands back. And then Robinson throws the ball over the top. Now, there's still like 4 seconds on the clock. You got to foul. I mean, 4 points is 4 points. Yeah, you know, how many times have you seen guys foul just in this tournament alone on 3-point shots? You know, maybe the guy misses the free throw and you go down. Maybe you get fouled. Maybe you bang a three, call timeout. I was shocked at that, but I do think that the defender, when the ball was inbounded, was afraid to foul Duncan Robinson. And really, with 10 or 11 seconds to go, if Duncan Robinson's really a smart player like he is, he's just going to hold that ball and, you know, hey, foul me. And I think they were afraid to foul. But, A, you have to foul in that situation, and, B, I think it was a more than fair question that if I was coaching Florida State, I would expect to be asked. I think Leonard Hamilton coming out of the locker room after addressing his team, tough loss, you know, trying to get to the Final Four. I think the last thing he wanted to do was that interview. So when he was questioned, I think he was stunned by that and kind of snapped. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't have, but you know, it happened, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and he did apologize. I should say he did come out, though, and said he didn't handle that well.
I don't think he had to issue an apology at all. At all. I didn't think he was overtly rude in any way. There was a little bit of back and forth, and he didn't like the question. But he, you know, look, in the moment, Dana Jacobson did her job, and in the moment, Leonard Hamilton was upset. He just lost a very important basketball game. I think on both sides, you just kind of wash your hands of it. You walk away. I didn't think it was as ugly as it was meant to be.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was as bad as everybody made it out to be. I think it was him. You know, maybe his tone, you know, do you really think that's why we lost the game? Yeah. But I do think that credit to, you know, to Leonard Hamilton or their PR people or whomever for putting out an apology, you know, and hopefully it was, you know, Leonard Hamilton that got the ball rolling with that and said, hey, we need to put out a statement after he saw it, listened to it, and realized maybe you know, it was something that, you know, he wished he didn't do. You know, so I think Dana Jacobson handled it well. I think it was great that Leonard Hamilton actually did apologize, because now I think it'll die down and everybody will move forward from it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and maybe he should take a page out of Tony Bennett's a book there with how he handled the loss after the 16 seat beat the 1, and Bennett could not have been more gracious in defeat. You just lost to a 16 seed. It's never happened before. So
yeah, I think Tony Bennett was
he was unreal.
You know, I think a lot of coaches you know, should watch that and learn from it, because talk about somebody that's in the toughest of spots. You know, where a 16 has never beaten a 1, and then they beat the number 1 overall team in the country, and couldn't have been handled any better, in my opinion.
And Coach Brown is usually very good in defeat too. I must say, you are very good.
He doesn't lose that much.
No, he doesn't.
Well, I just go back to the office and take it out on my staff.
No. There is one team, if he loses 2, we may not get a post-game radio interview out of, but.
Well, I blame that on the media relations for not grabbing me and pulling me over there.
But obviously you've had a pretty good stretch against that team, so it's been no worries. All right, Kay, listen.
No NIT questions.
NIT questions.
You couldn't name the 4 teams left, right?
Penn State.
You can name one of the 4, right?
Yeah, that's right. Penn State's in it? Okay. Yeah. I lost track of that, too, over the weekend.
So are you Nittany Lions going to win the NIT?
I hope so.
All right, they're in the Garden. You're not going?
No. I'm here all week.
Sending Chris and Ashley down?
Maybe that's a thought. It's a thought.
Hey,
Live
Chris,
coverage from Madison Square Garden. Yeah. Oh, man.
Thanks, Will.
All right,
Thanks,
Coach.
man.
Hey, no problem, guys. Anytime. Enjoy.
Appreciate it. That's Will Brown.